How Big Were the Dinosaurs by Bernard Most. It's hard to imagine how big some of the dinosaurs really were. Some dinosaur footprints have been found so big you and a couple of friends could stand in one of them. Just how big were the dinosaurs? Tyrannosaurus was so big some of its teeth were as big as your toothbrush, more than 7 inches long. I wonder how many tubes of toothpaste it would take to brush this monster's teeth. Triceratops was so big its head was bigger than your front door. Even though this plant eater was one of the most peaceful dinosaurs, I don't think your mother would want it inside your house. Shantungosaurus was so big it was about 50 ducks long. It was one of the biggest duck-billed dinosaurs ever found. I bet it could make the loudest quack ever. Stegosaurus was so big the plates on its back were larger than a school crossing sign. With all these protective plates, Stegosaurus would be a perfect crossing guard. Deinocheirus was so big its arms and hands together were 9 feet long. Since that was all scientists ever found of this dinosaur, I wonder how much bigger the rest of it was. Wouldn't it be nice to have an extra pair of helping hands that size around your house? Hypsilosaurus was so big its eggs were the size of a hen. Even though the sponge-sized plant eater was smaller than many other dinosaurs, its eggs were the biggest dinosaur eggs ever found. Do you think eggs that big would fit in an egg basket? Superosaurus was so big it was longer than a supermarket aisle. I bet this gigantic plant eater would have no trouble finding the vegetable section. How about calling this dinosaur Supermarketsaurus? Ankylosaurus was so big it was bigger than a school bus. This sturdy plant eater was covered with armor and weighed more than 5 tons. Wouldn't you feel safe going to school on an enormous dinosaur bus? Allosaurus was so big it was bigger than a bulldozer. This meat-eater's jaws were hinged so it was able to swallow large chunks of meat. Whenever I see the powerful jaws of earth-eating machine, I think of Allosaurus. Apatosaurus was so big at 1 month old it was bigger than a baby's crib. I bet it wasn't easy to babysit a 6-foot-long, 75-pound baby Apatosaurus. Parasaurolophus was so big the hollow tube at the top of its head was longer than a trombone. Some scientists think it blew air through its tube to make horn-like sounds. I wonder how it would have sounded in a school concert. Diplodocus was so big it was about as long as a basketball court, one of the longest dinosaurs ever found. It could have been nicknamed Stretch Lizard. I bet Stretch would have been able to slam dunk its head and its tail at the same time. Baryonyx was so big, its thumb claws were as big as this book. Its nickname was Heavy Claw. Do you think this very large dinosaur would like to thumb through this dinosaur book? Mamenchisaurus was so big its neck was longer than a school flagpole. No other dinosaur or any animal that ever lived had a longer neck. I think this dinosaur is worth saluting. Torvosaurus was so big its toes were bigger than a man's shoes. Scientists named this large meat-eater savage lizard because of the giant claws on its hands and feet. I bet you thought only grown-ups had big feet. Brachiosaurus was so big it was taller than giraffe, the tallest animal living today. A giraffe might need help from elephant and hippopotamus to reach as high as Brachiosaurus. Omaisaurus was so big it was longer than a bowling alley length. Scientists think it may have had a bony club at the tip of its tail. It sure would be fun to go bowling with this dinosaur. Strike! Therizinosaurus was so big its fingernails were almost as big as you are. Not much else is known about this big-fingered dinosaur. I wonder how long it would take to polish those huge fingernails. Ultrasaurus was so big its shoulder blade was longer than a park bench. If just one Ultrasaurus bone was this big, imagine how huge the whole dinosaur must have been. Seismosaurus was so big it was almost twice as big and weighed almost twice as much as Apatosaurus, better known as thunder lizard. The name Seismosaurus means earth shaker lizard. I bet you used to think thunder lizard was big. Maybe one day someone will discover a dinosaur so big it will make Earthshaker lizard look tiny.